Fantasy Football Podcast with John Impemba and Andrew Cooper.
What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Andrew Cooper. Welcome into the Quick Out Fantasy Football Podcast. It is week 4 of the NFL season. Coop, my friend, how we doing?
Phenomenal. Except for the fact that we're through 3 weeks now, man. The sands of time are slipping through our fingers. We need to cherish every single one of these weeks. So it's nice that we get to go through the full slate here. Tomorrow we have a Thursday game, and we're going to do it again here. Just remember what that feeling was like in March, right? In the offseason when it's like desperate for news.
As somebody who covers the MLB and the NBA seasons that take forever, and obviously MLB is double the amount of length that the NBA is. The NFL comes and goes in a blink of an eye. Like you said, we're already like a quarter of the way through it here. We have Thursday Night Football. This is the first week of the Sunday morning games as well. We got the European games kicking us off, a little kickoff and eggs, bacon and eggs kick off the day. So a lot of great things going on here. We got a lot to get to as well. We want to interact with you. We'll go through each matchup here today, but if you have some questions, get them in chat. Coop and I will answer those as we sort of hit those matchups here. And we want you guys to be part of our show today as well. Coop, why don't we hit off today with some news to get the people going?
Yeah, so mostly injury news. So I'll do the injuries in a second. There have been some reports, Jets players not happy with Zach Wilson, not surprising. But again, a lot of that can stem from, the thing is, they're bad quarterbacks for the players like the player. We saw that a lot with the guys like Baker Mayfield. In this case, I don't know, maybe rubs people the wrong way. Also kind of a side report that Colin Kaepernick was asking to even join the practice squad. Yeah. He's like, just give me a chance. So
they said no because he sued the league. So
that's right. Yeah, that one's on the outs. Injury wise, Anthony Richardson back at practice, not clear. He hasn't cleared concussion protocol yet. There's a series of tests you have to do where it's first you have to run with non-contact, but him practicing lends towards him likely playing. So that feels good. Bryce Young back at practice. Not even sure that's good for fantasy. Andy, I like Andy Dalton.
Did about 58 times on Sunday.
Threw 9 targets to our boy Miles Sanders. So I don't know. Let's see what this young Andy Dalton kid has. Right. Let's keep him in there. You've got Saquon Barkley day to day. David Montgomery trending in the right direction. Beyond that, nothing too crazy. Christian Watson, they say, is going to be back. But the rest of it, we're just keeping an eye on because today is the big day for injuries, right, John? It's veterans technically get the day off, but they usually, even if veterans have the day off, they'll say DeAndre Hopkins didn't practice today, right, but it was a veteran day off, right? They give us the info. So today is the day where we look at it and say, okay, this guy isn't practicing today. We're in trouble. Or usually they tell us, right?
Yeah, because we have Jimmy Garoppolo that was in concussion protocol. We have Derek Carr dealing with, the AC joint sprain there as well. So more players to kind of figure out, where their statuses could be trending here now that we're at the midweek point. Is tomorrow we got to set some lineups, and then of course Sunday we have the early games. We're setting some lineups, even more for everybody. Let's just jump into it here, Coop. If you guys have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those here throughout the show today. But Detroit, Green Bay kicking us off with Thursday Night Football. Green Bay's at home, getting 1.5 points at the 46 over under. David Montgomery is expected to return for Detroit this week. Last week, we had Josh Reynolds play 77% of the offensive snaps, but got 0 targets, and maybe he was just a runaround decoy there in that matchup. As we know, he was banged up throughout the week. You mentioned Christian Watson is hopeful and expected to play this week. How long and how many snaps will he see? Aaron Jones' status is still up in the air for this game here. We got a lot of Gibbs questions starting to roll in. So let's talk about this matchup, and let's talk about what do we do with Jahmyr Gibbs with the expectation that David Montgomery is going to be back in the fold here this week.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys in the chat. If you could, if possible, while you're hanging out with us, try and save your questions and throw them out when there's a relevant game, because we're going to try and hit all the games and all the questions. So if you hang out and say, oh, hey, they're talking Lions, I got a Gibbs question. We see you, it's Matt Merckx. We see you, Cruz Garcia. Perfect time to ask your Gibbs question, so we'll hit them right now. Do you start Gibbs, Moss, or Ramondre Stevenson? As crazy as it sounds, we got one more week of the Zach Moss show, and that is a one-man show. So I actually do think, as nuts as it is, over 2 guys that you probably use second and third round picks on, I think I'm going to start Zach Moss against the Rams. He's getting the full workload, John. Am I crazy?
No. And, so you say maybe one more week, maybe longer, because the most recent report, I think it was Deanna Rossini, said that Jonathan Taylor has no interest in playing for the Colts at all this season.
Yes.
And the Colts have no interest in giving him an extension. So that trade likely could happen. I floated out the idea that maybe Baltimore would be a contender for them. I mean, Gus Edwards got banged up a little bit. Melvin Gordon and Drake aren't obviously the answer there. So maybe you see Jonathan Taylor in Baltimore as a fit in that offensive scheme. But it seems like Zach Moss is the guy for the season here for Indy. I mean, listen, if Jonathan Taylor never suits up this year, he doesn't gain a year of service time. So you kind of find himself stuck in the same spot. But holding out for years never worked for an NFL running back. So we'll see what happens there. And then Cruz Garcia here, Gibbs, Kyron Williams, Miles Sanders, Devin A-Chain, or B-Rob. Start three of these guys here.
So I'm starting Miles Sanders right now. He leads the league in targets, right? So unless this is a standard league, I'm just leaning into the usage that Sanders has. He's on pace. Now, last week he got more targets than he normally would have, right? So he's probably not going to keep this pace that's on pace for 113. But even the first 2 weeks, he got 6 and 5, right? And then this week he got 9. So let's just call it 5.5. Like, let's just get rid of the 9-week game. That's still a 90 target pace this guy's on, right? And Bryce Young, people see like he's mobile, but he's not a rushing QB. He has 0 design runs this year, and there are even rumors that they won't use him on QB sneaks because he's too small. So he actually has no designed runs.
He'd be the only quarterback in the league where the Philly push wouldn't work.
Right. I hope they try. I hate to say it, but that's the play that would get the quarterback injured, and then we could get that outlawed. Right. Like if somebody tried to push Bryce Young into a pile. Right. So in that case, I'm going Miles Sanders. I'm going Kyron Williams because he's playing a ton, and then I'm probably going to start Jahmyr Gibbs if it's full PPR. Mm-hmm. If it's half PPR, then Brian Robinson should be a better game script for him.
Going against Philly, though, I don't think I want to run B.
Well, actually, you're right. Yeah, you don't want to do that. So I think I just start Gibbs regardless. I go Gibbs, the first 3 on your list there.
Yeah.
Achane, very exciting, and but he's got the Bills.
Listen, it's hard. He is not going to have 200 yards and 4 touchdowns again, right? Impossible to think. But
we said that with Puka Nacua after week 1. He has more targets.
I hope I'm wrong. I have Achane in some leagues.
Me too.
It'd be great to see. Michelle, I see your question. We'll circle back to that when we get to Miami, Buffalo, or Seattle matchup there for you. Fernando has one in this one game. He has Watson and St. Brown. Are you starting either of them? I'm over Higgins, Kirk, and Adams here. I mean, you have to play St. Brown.
You have to play Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams should be first on that list.
Yeah.
I mean, he just got 20 targets last week.
So you plug in Adams and St. Brown, then you're deciding, are you playing Watson, Higgins, or Kirk?
I have no reason or desire to start Watson in his first week back. Just because we don't know for sure what his conditioning is like or any of that. So I think I'm just going to start. You can throw against the Titans. It's difficult to run, but you can throw. I mean, Jerome Ford had a receiving touchdown, like a 30-yard receiving touchdown. So I think I would start Higgins.
I think you start Higgins this week too. It's obviously very scary with the Joe Burrow injury, but we saw Jamar Chase have no problems last week, and T. Higgins had no problems in week 2. So I think I go Higgins here. Kirk has the Atlanta matchup. And Jacksonville just hasn't looked great.
Yeah. All right. Last one, then let's get back to game previews. By the way, guys, I just want to mention again, I know we got a bunch of people popping in. We see you guys, Mendez, the gang. Try and do, if you don't mind, hang on to your questions and drop them in the chat when we get to a game that involves at least one of those players. So right now we're talking Packers, Lions. And we got to fly through these because we've already used 10 minutes of the show and there's like a million games.
Listen, we'll do our best, right?
Yeah, so
we'll answer Dan's question here. Would you use Reynolds on the showdown slate after you let everybody down? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Showdown
why not? Because the thing is he could get Jair Alexander again.
Well, so Alexander didn't play last week. So
he didn't play last week. So if Alexander's out, then I like it. If he plays, then I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Laporta, I moved him up to my standalone tight end category, Jack. We're feeling good about it. So for this game here, this is a big week for Luke Musgrave, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed because you get Christian Watson back. We assume he's going to be the top dog. That probably leaves only one other really, truly trustworthy fantasy relevant asset unless it's split evenly and we don't get one at all. It's very rare for a team to have 3 high-end assets in fantasy. If it's going to happen, it will be because there's 2 wide receivers that are getting full target shares, and Luke Musgrave is getting decent enough targets to be relevant because he's a tight end. But, it's probably going to be Christian Watson and one other guy. John,
Yeah.
I'm obviously rooting for Luke Musgrave because I'm a tight end guy, and the tight end eligibility obviously helps, right? Like if they're all going to split the targets evenly, then Musgrave's going to be the big beneficiary. But is there somebody you lean at a Dubs or a Reed, John?
I mean, I hope it's Reed. He seems like he's the more explosive player of the group so far. Scored on the end around, scored receiving the football. They used the second round pick on him. Listen, we all liked Romeo Dubs last year, but more so out of necessity, right? They didn't have anybody else. We talk about this a lot, and you talk about it, right? Like, those late round wide receivers, they're good, until they bring in somebody new. And then they drafted a second round wide receiver to kind of take that role over. So I think Reed is the guy I want to see go on over there. Let's go next game here. Sunday morning football, Atlanta, Jacksonville. This one is what? Is this London? Is this where
this is the London one? Yep.
Yeah.
And the Jags they basically just told them, hey, go out there, and why don't you just stay out there for a couple weeks? Because
your home games,
next week they have another game against the Bills, which I think that one kind of a little bit of a benefit to them because they get acclimated to the time zone. They get to stay, in the hotel and practice on the same field all week. So kind of gives them a little advantage against the Bills. This Falcons game, is what it is.
I'm with you.
I just want to make one last note on the previous game.
Sure.
What we're going to see this week with Luke Musgrave, with Christian Watson, just remember that Sam Laporte is going to face the same thing when Jameson Williams comes back. So Williams obviously a much different player. Who knows what he's going to be, but not every team is exactly what they're going to be yet, right?
Sure.
So keep that in mind. But in this Falcons Jags game, with the Falcons, it's been about the same this whole time. All the underlying stats for Drake London, for Kyle Pitts, they all look good, but underlying stats don't give us anything. 9 targets and a carry is fine for Kyle Pitts, but he's got to actually catch some of them. He also can't run the carry for -4 yards. He looked like maybe he's got some sort of issue with his knee or something. I don't know, but it really all boils down to Desmond Ridder on that team. The running backs, you start Bijan everywhere and you start Algier where you have to, but we know what that team is, right?
Yeah, well, this is why I said on Twitter yesterday, I mean, listen, the team would be – you can't tell me the offense wouldn't be better with Taylor Heineke as their quarterback. I mean, it's just – he's a better pure thrower than Desmond Ridder. I'm sure Heineke can hand the ball off just as good as Ridder can. So what exactly are we doing, with this experiment? It's unfortunate that they're 2-1 because I don't think they'd be forced to make any sort of a change at the quarterback position because they're 2-1 here. But I don't think it's anything that Desmond Ridder has done to put them over here. And we see Jack here saying the Ridley revenge game. Everybody was all in on the Jacksonville Jaguars after week 1 here, going up against Indy, and then 2 eggs at home the last 2 weeks, going up against KC and going up against Houston last week. Now you're going up against Atlanta, a defense that we consider to be kind of decent here, right? And secondary is fine. So I'm wondering, do you think that Jacksonville figures it out this week, or is this going to be another down week for a team that many people thought were going to be, a power offense this year?
I think there's going to be a little get-right trip for them. Like the thing with Trevor Lawrence is you got to think about the confidence level. Like we're all confident in this player that he can turn it around. So I think this team's going to be just fine. And the one guy that we've been able to trust is Evan Ingram. I mean, really consistent targets.
Right.
That's why we had him at pretty much the top of our yin and yang tight end. Is like draft Evan Ingram, and you have somebody safe that you can trust week to week, and then use a bench spot on somebody like Kincaid or Laporte. I mean, there are people sitting there with Ingram and Laporte asking me what to do, and I'm like, just celebrate, right? Celebrate, see if you can hang on through a bye week and then make a trade, or make a trade now if you want. But got to be feeling pretty good. We do have a question involving this game here. We got Ethan Batterman wants to know, hello, I have to sit one of these guys half points. Achane, Tank Dell, Christian Kirk, Rashad White. Rashad White's been pretty brutal, but he gets all the – Rashad White going against the Saints probably going to sit, right, John?
Yeah, well, yeah. Probably. You're taking a guy that definitely gets all the work and hoping that Achane is as productive as he was last. Again, Achane was good, but that Denver Broncos defense was non-existent. They had no resistance at all. And then they give 70 points. I mean, that's just not going to happen again. And Achane splitting carries and most are where White is the guy. So I mean, it's not great. It's definitely not a great spot for them,
Right.
but I may lean White here. I think
yeah.
there's a lot of hype for A-Chain.
Sometimes you got to look at your matchup. Like if you're playing the guy that lost, like Mike Williams and Nick Chubb, like a kid in one of my leagues had both, and I'm playing him this week, and I would just start Rashad White because I feel confident in my ability to beat a team like that. If you are the team that lost those guys and you need the juice and you need to shoot for the moon, then throw a guy like A-Chain in there and hope you caught lightning in a bottle. But this is definitely a different matchup and not.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, now a lot of people like this game because it's the highest game total on the board. Again, we'll get to Buffalo, Miami, but so you're going to see a lot of people looking to plug in exposure to them. I'm just, I feel like there's going to be just some people going down here against A-Chain this week for sure. Got the old logo there, Coop. Like, don't you have the new hat somewhere?
Yeah, I wore it yesterday. It's somewhere around here.
But good.
Wherever my white hat is, where I can't find either.
Glad you appreciate you tuning in here.
Yeah,
Fernando saying buy low on T-Law, possibly a buy low on T-Law. Next game here, we got Rams versus Colts. Colts are given one. It's a 46.5 game total. The Puka Nacua 20 target streak ended. But he still looked pretty good. Almost scored at the final end of that game there against Cincinnati. Tutu Atwell ends up getting the touchdown. The Rams lost 2 offensive linemen in that game, and Matt Stafford was blitzed a lot. Indy's defense, though, is not very good. I don't think he'll put up much of the same struggles that they showed last week. The turnovers are a little worrisome for me with Matt Stafford. 2 interceptions in each of the last 2 games. On the Colts side of things, Anthony Richardson, again, returning to practice, but still in concussion protocol. That offense obviously was able to come back and win against Baltimore last week under Gardner Minshew. What's your breakdown here, Coop?
Yeah, I mean, we're loving Zay Flowers, right? But what I would really love to see is a little bit higher ADOT from only 5 yards right now.
Zay Flowers on Baltimore. We're talking Rams, Colts here.
Oh, why are we going Rams? Oh, yeah, sorry, I scrolled down too far. Yeah, so I was looking at the question in the chat. I guess I'll take that off now because it's not a Rams-Baltimore question. Yeah, so, I mean, with the Colts, Anthony Richardson is a guy I have in a ton of leagues. So I really, really need him to come back, and I need them to not have lied to us. They said that when he comes back, they're going to use him exactly how they used him before. They're not going to change anything in the game script. And if he's on board with that and they're on board with that, with the concussion that he had, then I'm on board, right? Like, that's what we need for fantasy, because if he's not running, this guy might have no value. So we need them to get back to that. You got to love what you're seeing from Pittman, playing every snap. They played 84 snaps this week. He played every single one. Right. And then if you look at Josh Downs, the day Josh Downs becomes the every down wide receiver over Alec Pierce is the day that he becomes a megastar. Right now, he's still a viable asset in the stash, but they're still using Pierce on more snaps, which kind of annoying for fantasy football. With the Rams, are the one player I really have a hard time ranking and figuring out what to do with is Tutu Atwell. Do you think that he is a decent, sustainable asset? Are you trying to trade him in Dynasty? Where are you at with Tutu?
I mean, the question can't really be answered until we know what happens when Cooper Kupp comes back, right? Because then we have to figure out where people are playing and the roles they have. Obviously, Atwell isn't on the field all the time. Comes in on those 3 wide receiver sets. We saw him come off the field a few different spots last week against Cincinnati, but when they went wide, when they spread the offense, when they had to come back and make plays, like he was on the field, they took a lot of shots downfield on him, and he scored that touchdown. So, I mean, I'm still plugging him in my lineup every week until Kupp comes back, and then we see where the snap shares split out here. So if you want to try to sell high on him, sure. I don't know if there's a manager that's going to take the bait right away because of the uncertain questions there. You may be able to deal him and get a medium return for him, but I don't know if there's like a true sell high value for him. I'll just keep playing him. Until we figure out that situation,
Yeah. Mendez from the Twitch gang in the chat has a question on this game. Got to get the Twitch glasses out. What's up, Mendez? Which 2 would you start this week? He has Kyron Williams in this game. He also has Derrick Henry, Javonte Williams, and Zach Moss. Man. So that is a tough question.
Honestly, close to the tweet that I sent out today.
That tweet,
Kyron Williams for Mostert. That's the tweet.
It's living in my head, that tweet, right? Because it's like, you've got with Derrick Henry, like we know he's going to get all the meaningful carries, but it is scary that they're willing to go with Tajay Spears in desperate passing situations. Whereas Zach Moss is going to play the whole game. Kyron Williams going to play
the whole game. Yeah.
Yeah. It might be Moss and Kyron Williams. Sometimes you just got to lean.
And Javonte gets 50% of the snaps, but now it's the best matchup he's faced all year in Chicago. Yeah, you're playing Kyron and Moss here. You're sitting Henry and Javonte this week. And that's why I put that tweet out today, because we had that question and I looked at it and like your initial gut reaction is like, no, play your studs, Derrick Henry. Then you're like, well, actually Tennessee can't run block and Derrick Henry's not running all that well. And I don't think Tennessee's going to be ahead in this game. So this isn't a great game script for Derrick Henry now. And Henry was the one I was probably sitting in the Mostert, Moss, and Javonte group. And here I'm playing Kyron and Moss because they're getting all the snaps. So that's where I'm at with it.
There you go.
Adam saying 2-2 at 2-3 catches, call it back. Trust me, I know. I bet the over 4.5 receptions there. Good sir. We fell just shy of that one. So unfortunately, had 4 catches. Brutal beat on that one.
The value of Cup right now is that he's the most high risk, high reward asset you could ever imagine, where he might not play the entire season. And we've played this game before. Mm-hmm. If anyone that's ever had Odell Beckham Jr. or Michael Thomas and sat there and saying, well, when he gets back, we're going to win. And then they just don't play. Like sometimes guys, if this is a series of a hamstring, they're saying like genetic issues and all this stuff, then there's a possibility that he doesn't play. So you should keep that in mind, that you might have the best wide receiver in football, or you might have a wide receiver whose stat line for the season says 0.
I'm just worried because we haven't really gotten much more information about what's going on with him. Like, he's supposed to come back next week, right? And we don't even know. We have no idea where he's at. So, all right, let's move on to the next game. If you see any other questions, Coop, let me know here. We have Washington versus Philly on this situation. Philly is minus 8.5 at home, 43.5 game total. DeAndre Swift now back-to-back weeks, dominating performances there out of that Eagles backfield. Gainwell came back, did play like 45% of the offensive snaps, got double-digit carries as well. Some of that obviously came late when the game was a little bit out of hand, but Swift clearly the starter, but Gainwell still getting mixed in is a good sign for those who at least have Gainwell on their roster.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, Swift looks great though. And, everybody always asks like, oh, why didn't the Lions use him like that? Well, there's different schemes, different setups. And sometimes players, to be completely honest, don't fit in or understand one playbook or type of set of plays, whereas another player might. Like Tavon Austin could not figure out the Rams playbook. He literally said it looked like Spanish to him. And, some guys thrive in zone schemes versus, man blocking schemes or stretch schemes. So he wasn't a fit for the Lions, but clearly Swift is a fit for the Eagles. So Gainwell for me is still on the back burner. Swift is a guy you probably got to start in a lot of places.
Yep, 100%. And there's really nothing different from the Eagles side. The Washington side, again, you're going to play Robinson. You're going to play McLaurin. We'll see if Logan Thomas comes back, because tight ends have had some success against Philly this season. But,
got to feel good about Logan Thomas when seeing what Cole Turner did. So, like, if Cole Turner goes and plays the Logan Thomas role and gets 8 targets like Logan Thomas did in week 1, and Logan Thomas got hurt scoring a touchdown after only playing 40% of the snaps, whoever the tight end there is 100% a DFS option, and and potentially in your starting lineup for redraft.
Yep, I agree with you. We did have a question. Would you drop Godwin for Swift? I would, probably. I mean, running backs more valuable than wide receivers, but I guess that depends on your roster comp and league. But if DeAndre Swift is out there, I would pick up DeAndre Swift for Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin's the worst player on your team?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what does your team look like?
Who else you got, Daniel? Who else you got?
8-team league, I would imagine, for Swift to still be out there.
Yeah, it's got to be something like that, which is fine. Sometimes some leagues are 8 teams, some leagues are 6.
And
I played it last year. I played a 6-team league with with my buddies from college, and with just like a ridiculous number of flexes, and it was actually a lot of fun. Like, I'm done bashing on leagues. Like,
oh no, listen, get as many stuff as you can. That's a very, very good time there. What else we have, Coop, here? Any other thoughts on Washington, Philly?
Yeah, that's about it. The guy that's getting real close to being droppable for me is Jahan Dotson. I got to see something from him. I was worried all along that, these flashy contested catch guys, it is fun highlight wise, but you got to remember, there just aren't that many opportunities for contested catches. If you're not getting open, they're not just going to keep firing it at you all game long. It's very difficult and risky to do that. So in practice, you go out and say, hey, like that's the thing about practice highlights with contested catch guys is sometimes they're running a drill and they're going to throw it no matter what, right? So you're throwing it no matter what happens and just see if the guy makes a play. That doesn't happen in NFL games. If you're not getting open, there's other options. They're not just
Also, in
chuck
order to make a contested catch, the quarterback actually has to be a good enough quarterback to give you an opportunity to get a contested catch. And we don't think Sam Howell is that. And also, as we talked a lot about, the NFC East, AFC East matchups this year are terrible. They have some of the toughest schedules in the NFL for quarterbacks and passing offenses here. So, going to be out on Washington in this one. Denver, Chicago here, Coop. Denver's giving 3 on the road. It's a 46 game total. We had a question regarding Fields earlier up here in the chat. Is it time to move on from Fields? He's looking at maybe CJ Stroud as a pickup. I don't know how you sit a guy against a defense that just gave up 70. But, I mean, if Fields can't get anything going against Denver this week, he's a low-end starter. I mean, definitely worthy of consideration for benching at that point.
Yeah, I think this is the last. I think you start Fields this week, and then you have permission to rage drop him if he doesn't do anything in this game, right? Like the Bears in general are not playing in games where the over/under is even 46 like this. They're not playing in games where they're even close to being, 3 points from, 3-point dogs, right? So like this is like probably one of the last chances you're going to get for a good game script at home with a potentially decent scoring game. If he does nothing here, man, you got to move him, especially if Justin Simmons is out again, and doesn't do anything here. Yeah.
Where's the running plays? Can we get him like some design runs and, some more opportunities for him to use his legs, maybe a little bit to get him going? That's what I would like to see there. But hard to really play much. You can't touch their running backs. Can't really. DJ Moore was fine. He saved fantasy managers with a touchdown in garbage time last week.
Here's a crazy stat on Fields that I've been kind of tracking that he does. They don't. It's not. So people are like, oh yeah, this team doesn't throw the ball. They actually do call a lot of pass plays. So to put it in perspective, this team has called 114 pass plays. There have been 114 dropbacks, which is like middle of the pack. But Fields himself has only actually thrown the football, let the football fly on, where's the number here? Like 88 of them. So 114, he's only thrown it 88 times. To put that in perspective, the Miami Dolphins, they've called 107 dropbacks, and Tua's thrown it 103 times. So when the Dolphins call a pass play, Tua throws the football. When the Bears call a pass play, half the time it ends up in a scramble. The other half, it's either a sack or a pass that is just a throwaway. It doesn't even count as an attempt. So what the coaches want is they want Justin Fields, when they call a pass play, to drop back and throw the football. And what Justin Fields told us in his interview the other day, that's not what he wants to do. He wants to run around and play his crazy game. But I'll tell you this right now. The person that is going to be hurt the most by that is DJ Moore. Because if they're calling the week one, they called 54 pass plays. He only threw it 37 times. That's not 54 is crazy. This team is probably going to call 30 and he's going to throw 20. That's going to kill all these guys, Kmet, Fields, whatever, because the coaches all they can do is call the play. They can't make him throw it. So that is a scary thing. He's throwing it on, like last year, all season long, he only threw on 71% of the pass plays. That is insane. No other quarterback was even under
a lot of that also had to do with the inability of any of those wide receivers to get open. I mean, when N'Keal Harry is your wide receiver 2 and Economia St. Brown's out there, it's difficult to throw to guys that aren't open. But I would like to see him move around a little bit more because it extends those plays to give someone like DJ more time to get open and lose sort of defenders in 5 spots. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays. The Denver side of this game, I do the quarterback coach for DFS this week. Russell Wilson's on the cover. Great price tag. All 3 wide receivers are in play. Judy, Sun, and Mims, even though Mims obviously has like the limited snap share. I like him as a dart throw in DFS this week. I think there's a lot to do, a lot of good things coming for Denver's offense this week.
Yeah, Mims, I mean, I just feel like once you have a game like that where now 2 weeks in a row, Mims the week before only played like 14% of the snaps, had 89 yards, 113 yards, and he ran back a punt for 45 yards. And then this week he comes out and runs back the kick. If you're going to have a game like that, you just say, you know what, forget it. Let's just give this guy a shot, So I would love to see it just be no more Brandon Johnson, no more Little Jordan Humphrey, Sutton, Judy, Mims. let's do it. Like you already lost Dulcich and you don't have a pass catching tight end. Just put your most explosive players on the field. So that's what I want to see there. We have one question from this game. Our boy Toronto Dave in the chat. Shout out to the Toronto area. Jacoby Myers or DJ Moore? I'm starting Jacoby, man.
Yeah.
Jacoby's pretty locked in.
Dude, Jacoby Myers has gone into this Josh McDaniels offense, and we always talked about it. Slot receivers in the Josh McDaniels offense, they become like Pro Bowlers. Like, it's just the way it,
right.
Jacoby Myers did it in New England, right? As a undrafted free agent, as a rookie, was out there being, they said, the best wide receiver Tom Brady had to throw the football to. So I'm not shocked. I'm shocked at the level that he's producing at, but I'm not shocked that he's producing at it, because he's obviously a very good route runner and pass catcher there. So, but Jacoby's a plug-in wide receiver 2 every week at this point right now. So I'm in there for sure.
Yeah. So Daniel, in those 18 leagues, one thing I've learned is that the secret to winning them is to quote unquote lose trades. And what I mean by that is create trades that are 3-for-1s and 2-for-1s where you're giving up way more than you have to just to get one better player. Right. So if you can I see you have like Aaron Jones and T Higgins and Nico Collins. Like if you can take T Higgins and Aaron Jones and give them both up for somebody that's just marginally better than Higgins or Jones or just any sort of RB1,
sure,
you gain the value there. And then the waivers are so good that you can just replace the value on waivers. So that's the move there.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next game here, Coop. See if we can work our way through these. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. New Orleans is at home, given 40.5 game total in this one. We could have Jameis Winston starting this one for the Saints, little revenge game against Tampa Bay. We also have the betting odds here on who wins the fight between Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans. Will one of them be ejected? It's probably set at like -120 at this point.
Lattimore always wins. But Lattimore always wins the fight because if they both get ejected, then Lattimore wins.
Sure.
His job is to take Mike Evans out of this game.
Literally and figuratively.
Right. And he tries every time. So, and that is funny, man.
What do you think the wide receiver meeting room was for this game in Tampa Bay this week? It's like, Mike, do not get ejected. Just let it go. Just let it go.
Hey, it's Mike is like the gif of the guy with his hands like this. He's like, yeah, no problem, dude.
Twice a year we get matched up against him, man.
I know. It's entertaining to say the least. So yeah, I mean, it's rough. Like Cade Otton, obviously, he did nothing last week in what should have been a good matchup. This week, brutal matchup. So you can't even think about Cade Otton. It's really just start Mike Evans. You got to start Mike Evans because he's Mike Evans. You start Chris Godwin where you have him, unless you're in the 18 league there, and then you drop him to waivers or whatever you want to do. It's a tough matchup for Rachaad White. I'm never answering another Taysom Hill question, so we don't have to really talk about that. And then Jameis Winston is the kind of guy where if I'm making DFS lineups and I'm trying to go for GPPs, he is going to take some shots at Chris Olave. There's no question, right? Like he is going to let it fly. Right, John? Like he's that exact guy where he gets in for one game and he has Chris Olave, the ball is going up, dude. No question. So 100%. Chris Olave, I can see Chris Olave having like a 70-yard touchdown and finishing the day with like a crazy stat line. Or if Jameis Winston just sucks, then you're back where you were before. In GPPs, you either do something crazy or you do nothing at all. So you might as well start Olave in that one. I'm starting Alvin Kamara everywhere I have him. If I drafted Alvin Kamara and I waited 3 weeks, then I'm just whoever I have, I'm moving them out of the lineup and I'm putting Kamara in there. This is the time. I love that he posted that meme on Twitter. He took like a video of this like guy getting out of jail and he put his face over the guy and he's like, he's like, we out, like we free. So he's fired up to play. I've been seeing everybody using every time Michael Thomas tweets, he uses the hashtag free AK. Derek Carr's been saying that he's excited to have him back. So it's wheels up there.
Well, I hope Derek Carr is the quarterback for his sake because Jameis Winston, as we learned, isn't a guy that checks down.
He doesn't.
So, but they're in desperate need of a running back here. Obviously, Jones and Kendre Miller last week had a little bit of struggles. I do think that Miller, as Miguel Rojas says, is probably a stash. Yeah, you're not getting rid of Miller. He's the RB2 until Jamal Williams comes back. So, but Kamara should dominate the touches there for sure. Any other thoughts on this matchup here, Coop? Any other questions you see here pertaining? I know there's a lot, obviously, coming into chat, guys. We're going to do our best to hit these.
I'll just say I'm still starting Michael Thomas. He's not a so he's the opposite of a GPP play because he's getting, possession catches, but 8 targets a game is all we need in this world. And, he made a nice, the sideline catch last week, John, right? That restored our faith in a player like this. I think he can go out and do what he does, which is possession, catch slants and do all that. So Michael Thomas, easily, I have a hard time looking at my wide receiver 3 spot and just having 36 better wide receivers than Michael Thomas.
I agree with you. Adam says, are we starting Godwin over Jacoby Myers with Thielen? He needs 1 for last spot. Would you go Myers this week against the Chargers or Thielen against Minnesota if you had to pick one? I don't think Godwin's where I'm going this week.
I'm going Jacoby Myers, man. He's playing full. Because they use
Andy Dalton is confirmed starting. Andy Dalton versus Minnesota with Thielen or Myers versus Garoppolo.
Oh, that it's a little closer, but I like Myers. I mean, the Chargers you can throw on, and because they use the fullback, Jakob Johnson, and the 2 tight ends, Austin Hooper and Michael Mayer, who are doing nothing, it really consolidates the snaps. Hunter Renfrow doesn't even play.
No,
he hardly plays at all. So I feel actually really good about Jacoby Myers.
I like Jacoby Myers a lot too, but if you want to go Thielen, if Dalton is in there, I have no problems.
Wouldn't blame you on that,
with that either. Baltimore, Cleveland here. Cleveland's giving 2.5. Baltimore 40.5 game total in this one on the road. Jerome Ford didn't really have an efficient game, but found the end zone twice last week. Kareem Hunt's banged up already, has a groin and was limited at practice, I guess, or didn't practice today. So Jerome Ford experience against Baltimore. Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper looked as good as I said they would last week, but I don't think they get it done against Baltimore's defense here this week.
Right, yeah. And we have couple Jerome Ford questions in the chat. Reminder, folks in the chat, we're trying to get through all the games and we're trying to answer all the questions. The best way for us to do that is for you to wait till we get to a game with one of your players and throw it out there. So we had a couple Jerome Ford questions. We're going to get to them now. And the true best way for you to get your questions answered, go over to fantasyalarm.com, get yourself an all-pro membership. Right now, you can do a 7-day free trial, which is going to get you the rest of the week in baseball. All of Sunday this week, the NASCAR race at Talladega. John, did you see where they're running the Ricky Bobby schemes?
No,
dude, they're running them. SHR is running. They have both sponsors, so their 2 drivers are going to have the Wonder Bread car and the Old Spice car. I love that. Shake and bake, baby. So yeah, you can get in there. Matt Sells, our NASCAR Raider, 3-time NASCAR Raider of the year. So he might be.
Scan the QR code, go to fantasyalarm.com/win, get your 7-day free trial today. Little Birdie told me, Coop, it's going away. So this could be your last week. Take advantage of the 7-day free trial. Get access to our DFS content here.
The thing is, we answer as many questions as we can here in the Discord. Every question gets answered every time. So get in there, get your questions answered. So we got the Jerome Ford question here. Would you trade Jerome Ford and Flowers for Jonathan Taylor? I'm 0-3. Absolutely, I would not. Now you
don't know if Jonathan Taylor's going to play or where he's going to play. No. I get your frustration, but no, I am trading for players that are actually playing.
Right. Jerome Ford's not playing this. Jonathan Taylor's not playing this week. So what's the plan? Go 0-4
Go
and just
0-4. Hope, just play Ford and Flowers, Brad. Here, I get the frustration. I actually think there's a chance that Pierce has an okay week this week against Pittsburgh. He can kind of run against them.
I'm not sure if you're a boxing fan, Brad McCoy, and shout out Twitch gang. I forgot to throw the Twitch glasses on because we've got a Twitch guy here, but very rarely does the boxer who's losing just start throwing haymakers and connect. You're more likely to throw everything away trying to trade for Cooper Kupp and trade for Jonathan Taylor when you're 0-3 than you are to just hit this home run Hail Mary.
Making a trade with those two, but get a player that's going to help you this week.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's not going to help you there. So again, Baltimore, Cleveland, you're going to play everybody in Cleveland. You're going to play Ford. You're going to play Elijah Moore's getting a ton of targets. Mari Cooper's getting a ton of targets. I just don't think they're going to have the same level of success this week than they did against Tennessee throwing the football. The Baltimore side's going to have a tough go because Cleveland's defense is really good. And the Baltimore offense, they're not what I expected them or had hoped them to be this year to this point yet. Obviously, Lamar Jackson got the rushing touchdowns. That looked great. But their passing offense hasn't really been there. And they didn't score a lot of points last week against Indy.
No. One more Ford question here. Half-point PPR, Mahomes, Pollard, Kyron, Pacheco, Madison, Ford, Hunt, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Judy, Godwin. Would you trade Madison and Ford for Amari? So I would like your starting lineup better with Amari in it, but I just think that you're probably more safe having the RB depth.
I mean, I don't think you need
I don't think you need
to
to do it.
that, but I do like an idea. I mean, do you start 3 wide receivers or 2? Because Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, or whatever, like would be fine.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you start 3 wide receivers, maybe, but you're gonna want to have RB depth, my man.
But yeah, because Madison, Kyron, and Pacheco are certainly good enough, but you run yourself a risk there trading 2. So
yeah,
I don't think you need to go there necessarily.
I think that's all the questions we got on this game. So next game, we got one more. Would you trade Achane and DJ Moore for 2, 2, and 4? Shout out Hal, what up, baby?
No,
I wouldn't. Keep what you got.
Keep DJ Moore and Achane, just because I think Achane's the better long-term play there.
Yep. And we already hit on Nicholas Hartley's question, so we're good. All right, next game.
Yeah. Minnesota, Carolina here. Minnesota's giving 3.5 on the road. Carolina plus 3.5, 45 game total. Again, we don't know the Andy Dalton status. You like Miles Sanders. Adam Thielen crushed last week. And then the Minnesota, I mean, Justin Jefferson, a yard shy from his 3rd straight 150-yard game. Jordan Addison came through there at the end. Madison actually ran the ball really well. We'll see if Cam Akers is going to be active or not this week. But, Minnesota's offense should have no problems against Carolina this week.
Yeah, boy. I'm feeling good. I mean, Justin Jefferson's in. Miles Sanders is in. TJ Hawkinson's in. We want Addison to get the snaps over KJ Osborne, but I don't even think it matters, right, John? Like Addison's getting the targets.
Yeah, the targets. They throw so much. Minnesota's defense is so bad that Cousins just has to keep throwing because he's never comfortably in a lead. So if Andy Dalton's quarterback this week, I think Carolina can move the football down the field on this Minnesota defense and keep this in a game where Minnesota has to keep throwing the football. So I'm in there.
Drop the TV, Twitch gang, baby. Twitch glasses on. How we doing? We're talking about football with our best good buddies here in the chat, man. It doesn't get much better. We got football coming back tomorrow.
Receptions prop for anybody here. I don't see you on.
Yeah, check that out.
On Underdog.
It's probably gonna be set at like 4.5, which I think is fair. But anything under 4.5, I'm smashing. And I will say in this game, I'm interested to see. This team, the Panthers, really haven't had a game where all 4 wide receivers are healthy. Like Jonathan Mingo left the game with a concussion last week. So we had one game where it was Terrace Marshall, Thielen, and not DJ Chark, but Mingo playing all 3 snaps. Then the second game when DJ Chark came back, Terrace Marshall fell on the back burner.
Yeah.
And then the third game where we were supposed to get our answers, Mingo got hurt. So we didn't really get the answers there. The one thing we do know is through all that, Adam Thielen's played every snap. So he's the one you can trust. Last week, DJ Chark played every snap. But was it because Mingo got hurt or was it because he was going to anyway? Right. So I would love to see
if Mingo's out, at least we know Marshall could be a play this week because the targets have still been there. So
they do like using 3 wide receivers for most of the game. It's if they have 4, they'll split 2 of them, but they're out there for a lot of the game. 11 personnel for a lot of the game. So if one of them's out, then all 3 of them are viable DFS plays.
Yeah. Cool. Let's just get through the rest of these games and we'll rapid fire questions at the end because I think that's we're running out of time here for everybody to get their questions answered. So Pittsburgh, Houston's the next game here. Houston's getting 3 at home, 42 over under. This is gonna be a tough week for throwing the football against this Pittsburgh secondary here. Stroud has been a big attempt monster over the last 3 weeks. And Tank Dell looked really good for the second straight week here as well. Nico Collins took a little bit of a backseat in terms of production against Jacksonville. And Pittsburgh came through with the win last week against the Raiders. Pickens, obviously Calvin, what's the second? Calvin Austin had a touchdown in that game. Thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, with the Texans, you have to pay attention to game script. And we saw it. The first 2 weeks, they led all teams in dropbacks, 109. The only other team over 100 was the Patriots, and the Patriots are playing with their backs against the ropes first 2 weeks as well. Last week, you saw it normalize, and that's what you saw out of Nico Collins. So at the end of the day, there's probably going to be 1, maybe 2 fantasy relevant assets. We still like Nico Collins. Tank Dell, I have him over Robert Woods. Robert Woods, to me, is a guy I can't trust him anymore now that Tank Dell has shown
that he can be a guy.
Yeah. So we're just rooting. Here's what would be perfect for this team because it's a bad team. But if you were to use Andrew Beck played 28 of 56 snaps this week, the fullback, and he returned a kickoff for a touchdown, which was a lot of fun. But that's the best, dude, right?
No, that was not the best. That killed me on my Stroud prop had the over 34.5 pass attempts. That's the one thing you have to take into consider when you look at dropbacks. They had the kickoff return for a touchdown, kills an entire series where they could have thrown the football. And then they had the Tank Dell 60-yard touchdown, which kills more dropbacks that they could have had. So
I was starting Jags DST everywhere, and I'm like, oh, nice, that doesn't count against me. And then I remembered special teams does count. It's pick sixes that don't count. Yeah. So I was like, Andrew Beck dunking on me, unbelievable. But so the ideal situation would be Andrew Beck playing a ton of snaps, and then you just have 2 wide receivers and the fullback and the running back and the tight end, and then everything consolidates. That's why the 49ers are so good for fantasy, and the Dolphins, right? So I want to see more Andrew Beck, less Robert Woods.
The one thing teams can do against Houston, surprisingly, is run the football. Right. Pittsburgh hasn't proven the ability to run the ball against anybody, so something kind of has to come to a head. Houston's secondary, last year they were kind of sneaky good as well. Teams were only running the football against them. This year, teams are running the football and really kind of not throwing the football against them with a lot of success here. So, is this a week when Najee Harris finally gets something going, or do we see Jalen Warren cut back into some of the work again?
Yeah, Najee Harris will probably here's what's going to happen. Najee Harris will have all the high leverage plays. He'll start. He'll get the goal line stuff. He'll probably score a touchdown, and then Jalen Warren will have like a 60-yard run where he gets tackled at the 10, and Twitter will go crazy, and that's how it's going to work for the rest of the season for that team. So let's move on to the Dolphins. We got to get through this quick and get back to some.
Yeah, Miami Buffalo, biggest game on the board, 53.5 total. Buffalo's giving 3. Listen, I think there's a little bit of a step back coming from Miami in this one. You look at their offense against New England. They struggled. Why? Divisional opponent, better defense, who they've had a lot of success against, the Chargers, and then Denver, 2 of the worst defenses in football. Buffalo is a much better defense that they're going to run up against. I don't think 70 is obviously coming, but in my DFS article this week, in my fade section, I wrote up Tua. I said Tua was going to be a fade for me in DFS this week. We'll see if I'm right or wrong there, but I expect more to come from the Buffalo defense in this matchup here.
Yeah. It's like, and the thing is, everyone's going to be trying to stack up the Dolphins. Everyone that did last week and everyone that's done it the week 1, like they just going to keep doing it. It's fine. It worked. Yeah. You get the FOMO. Yeah. So everyone's going to be doing it. Yeah. I'm with you to go away from that. But in your regular redraft leagues, you start Tua everywhere. You start Jalen Waddle everywhere. You start Tyreek Hill everywhere. You start Raheem Mostert pretty much everywhere. Durham Smythe, last week he should have popped off in that matchup. He got hurt. He got he did like a front flip on a 15-yard catch, got taken out of the game. They didn't put him back in. They just used Julian Hill. But the quote from Mike McDaniel was, they asked, how long is he going to be out? And he said, he's got durable right in his name. McDaniel's such a nerd. He's like, Durham Smythe got durable right in his name, so he should be back. So Durham Smythe, he's a boring option, but and again, you don't want to start him against Matt Milano, but Durham Smythe will be back on the menu at some point. With the Bills, the most important storyline for this team is the Dolphins are terrible versus the tight end. This is a very important game for Dalton Kincaid. He needs to turn it on soon. We can't just stash him all year long, hoping that he pulls an Amon-Ra St. Brown and is terrible for half the season and great in the second half. You just don't have space for tight ends like that on your roster. So this is the week for Dalton Kincaid to show us something. I hope he does, but if he doesn't, we got to move on. I mean, I'm still holding Kincaid everywhere, but even in my own rankings, I moved Luke Musgrave ahead because the numbers are the numbers. I straight up told people they were asking me questions. I said, look, the numbers and the process say Luke Musgrave over Dalton Kincaid. I personally, with my teams and my opinions, am holding Kincaid, but the process is more important than my process is more important than my opinions because it takes the biases out. So you got to make those decisions.
I'll answer this question from Michelle because she was like the first question that popped in here, and so she threw it back up because she waited.
Yeah. Sorry, Michelle.
We got to the game here. So rest of season PPR, most certain in Wilson or Walker and Charbonnet. I don't know what you're going to get out of Wilson here. I think I go Walker Charbonnet over the crew.
Right. Yeah. If you're the question is, here's the question: how close is the backup to your starting lineup? Right. Because I think I like Mostert's best out of all those players. So if it doesn't matter, if the backup doesn't matter at all to you, then just go with Mostert. But there could be a chance you start Walker and Charbonnet at some point.
Like what happens when Wilson comes back? Like they said, he's going to be ready in week 5 and A-Chain has another monster day. Like they're not going to not play A-Chain with Wilson there. So
and let's hit Corrupt TV's question real quick, just for the Twitch boys. Shout out Twitch gang. Marquise Brown, Lockett, Kirk, Higgins, Palmer, start 2 of that crew. That's a good squad. I'm not starting Palmer just because we don't quite know yet, right?
Well, I mean, he did play every snap last week. I think we do know.
Yeah, but Tyler Lockett, man, got to get Lockett in there. I think It's either I think I would go Lockett and Higgins personally. You would bench Tyler Lockett for Josh Palmer. We watched Josh Palmer last year. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen
He
only
averaged
played
like 15 fantasy points a game last year when they were out of the
How many
lineup.
did Tyler
And he
Lockett?
scored in week 1. He scored last week.
What did Tyler Lockett average?
I don't know. Lockett on the road in New York.
Giants, dude.
I don't know. I think I would go Palmer and Higgins if I had.
I'm going Lockett and Higgins. Corrupt TV.
Right.
You're gonna have
We're
to
split.
choose who you
Flip a
believe.
coin for us here. All right, let's go. We got 10 minutes left in the show. We got a rapid fire.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Tennessee. Again, we just talked about Higgins. I love Burrow this week if he's healthy enough, but I don't know. Jamar Chase, obviously lock and load. You can't sit anybody in Cincinnati. You just have to pray to God that Burrow can get that calf healed up. Tennessee side of things, I don't want to play anybody. Not a single soul. Not one person. Playing one. Not playing one. Not playing one guy. Not going to do one. Not even Derrick Henry if I don't have to. So
right. Like, didn't these teams do this last? I feel like maybe it wasn't this matchup. It was last year. It was like the Bengals Titans last year. Both teams had their back against the ropes. It was closer to the middle of the season. It was like October, but it's like these teams start slow every year and then they play each other and one team goes on to do something and the other goes on to do nothing. 1 and 2 here. This is a big game for these teams. It's going to be an ugly game though. So I'm starting Chase, Higgins, no tight end for the Bengals, no Tyler Boyd, because it's not, you can only start Tyler Boyd in like the big games, right? Sure. The big blow up games. Yep. Joe Mixon, you're starting though, even against a bad Titans defense. I mean, like he's going to go in your RB2 spot at least.
Yeah, listen, he scored last week. If he can score a touchdown, great. He's not going to get a lot of yards though. He just isn't that back anymore.
But Jerome Ford caught some passes. You got to bank on that. Next game.
Yeah, Raiders, Chargers, again, another offense where I think you can play everybody. We don't know with Quentin Johnson. He got a little bit of a bump in snaps, but it was Josh Palmer that took over for the Mike Williams role last week. That's just the way it played out. So we still think the Chargers are going to throw a ton. I think there's a great spot for the Raiders. I hope Jimmy G is healthy enough to play here because the Chargers' pass secondary is terrible. Devontae Adams, even though he's upset and giving quotes that there's not a winning culture in Las Vegas, I still think that he and Jacoby Myers are going to tear apart this Chargers defense. So everything's a go here. You can also run on the Chargers. I don't know if Jacobs is going to be able to get it going. He has, again, struggled to begin the year, and probably because he held out the entire offseason. But, Jacobs is a guy that is going to at least be in my lineups as an RB2 this week, given where you probably drafted him.
Yeah, I have Devontae Adams as my wide receiver 3 this week, because you can't put anybody ahead of Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. I was like, how high can I move this guy? This is the highest you can move anybody. You're allowed to. You're not allowed to move anybody over Justin Jefferson ever, right? So that's where I got him. And just quick lesson to all the kids of the world, especially the guys like Elijah Moore. If you're going to complain, right, don't complain after your team won 3 games like Elijah Moore did with the Jets. Complain after your team loses a game where you got 20 targets. That's where you're allowed to complain. So Devontae Adams complaining this week, that's the perfect time to step in and say, hey, I'm doing everything I possibly can.
Yeah.
I need somebody else to change the culture here. I need somebody to step up because I got 20 targets and I did everything I could.
Yeah, and Jacoby Myers had a big game. The defense has let them down again there. So
Jacoby.
But they're all in play. Both offensive guys. What are you doing with running back in Chargers? You're playing Kelly this week, back-to-back bad weeks because he's not a good running back. Coop, we tried to tell people.
Josh Kelly, this isn't the first time either. This is like 3 years in a row. Like, fool me 17 times in a row. This is more like that tennis player that was like, nobody beats so-and-so 17 times in a row.
We said don't play him against Tennessee. That was a bad matchup. He struggled. We said play him against Minnesota, and if he sucks, then we know he sucks. He sucked. We know he sucks.
11 carries for 12 yards.
We don't have to worry about playing him anymore.
This team should have signed a bruiser back. They should have. They're out there, man. Yeah. They're out there. They should go get Dwayne McBride. Just get Dwayne McBride. At least he can run.
Get Austin Eckler back soon, man.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
All right. We got
rapid fire here. We got a minute or two to go here. Alarm Fantasy Football is coming up next, though, guys. I see all your questions in chat here. If you stay with the Fantasy Alarm for YouTube channel, Coop will be there with Howard Bender on Alarm Fantasy Football to answer your questions. Let's just go rapid fire here, Coop. A minute or two left. Arizona, San Francisco, 49ers are given 2 touchdowns in this game.
Crazy. Can't really start anybody from the Cardinals. That includes Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has been trending down. Yeah. I mean, and the 49ers, you know who you're starting. So just start all those guys.
Yep, I agree with you. McCaffrey, Debo, IU, Kittle, they're all in great spots. New England, Dallas here. Dallas given 6.5, 43 over under. Dallas getting upset in Arizona. You got to think they're going to be a little upset about that one. You have the Zeke Elliott revenge game narrative coming here for the Patriots.
Pollard, Lamb, smash him in there. Jake Ferguson, Kyle Duggar is the best guy, maybe in the entire league, at covering the tight end. It is a terrible matchup for Jake Ferguson. Use somebody else.
Can I say that I'm a little worried about CeeDee Lamb with the way Christian Gonzalez has been covering teams' top
He's been
wide
good,
receivers?
man. Yeah, he's been good, dude.
PFF has rated Christian Gonzalez a top 5 cornerback.
Right. And Dak is just, man, he is really hesitant to take shots down the field. He is not on the same page with Brandon Cooks right now.
Not at all. KC Jets, this should be a bloodbath. I don't even know why it's only 10. You have Taylor Swift in your corner. I mean, how do you lose?
Yeah, dude. They got the power of Taylor Swift and anime and the Lord on their side. It's a tough spot for the Jets. So again, with KC, you start Mahomes and Kelsey. Sky Moore, is that the best bet? I kind of like the way Rashee Rice is looking.
Rashee Rice has played
good
well.
Good stash, and maybe a DFS play, and you're just hoping that he becomes the dog, man, because he's
Don't
got
read anything into Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's 15 carries. That was a blowout run. Isaiah Pacheco's still the RB1 there. Exactly, and Zach Wilson's an a-hole. That's why people don't like him. Final game, Seattle, New York here. Final thoughts.
I'm starting Metcalf. I'm starting Lockett. JSN, we don't know yet. Kenneth Walker, you're still starting. Can't start Charbonnet. And this is a Darren Waller big spot for him, man. The Seahawks historically been not great against the tight end. I think Darren Waller is in a smash spot this week. I'm probably going to have him ranked as the top 5 tight end once again.
All right, guys, again, hang right here with the channel, Fantasy Alarm YouTube. Alarm Fantasy Football is coming up next. Coop and Howard Bender are in that. They'll answer your questions. Stay with us. Follow us along. See you next week. Good luck in week 4.